So welcome all, and then as said, the meeting is or the webinar is recorded. So then obviously the ones who are not here and the ones who are here as well, you can listen into the recording as well afterwards. And that's also the request and our mindset as well is that we will roughly speak for half an hour. Each of us gets 10 minutes of to host the beginning, and then the end is actually being reserved for questions from you guys, and then looking into what would be there in your mind to hear more details. But before I can actually be last because I will be the first presenter, so I will hand in the microphone to Anna for to have a short introduction to herself. Go ahead, Anna.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. My name is Anna Seppänen, and indeed, not just making jokes about talking about the 10 commandments of AI. I actually do have a background in theology. I have a PhD in theology, but my field of study is social ethics and more particularly business ethics. So I've been focusing on business ethics and also with along with that AI ethics, digitalization ethics, both as a researcher and then as a developer. It was 4.5 years ago, I started a company with a couple of colleagues from the university, and we are focusing on promoting the humane and ethical sustainability in organizations. And during the last year or so, year and a half or so, my working days have been more and more filled with topics related to AI ethics. So this is such a topical thing to talk about. I'm really happy to be here with two excellent experts from different fields. So really nice to host this event together.
Lovely to have you here, Anna. Thanks. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Mark Sherwood-Edwards. I'm a lawyer based in London. My background is like a lot of people, I started working for law firms and went in-house and worked with various technology companies. And for the last more than 10 years, I've been working on my own, concentrating on the tech sector, lots of SaaS businesses, and now a lot of AI inevitably. So it's an interesting subject. It raises lots of interesting questions. We've got the AI Act arriving soonish. So yeah, I'm looking forward to hear what Jussi and Anna have got to say from their point of view as well.
Lovely to have you, Mark, here. And yes, and my name is Jussi, and it soon starts to be 6 years since starting the company called YELLOWMAY, but I've been working with insurance industry now for plus than 15 years. So, and have had the privilege of working basically on all areas of insurance. So from reinsurance to TPAs and looking into different ways how insurance interacts with service providers, but also how it is being handled insurance within the let's say regular insurance industry provider who's a insurance risk carrier there as well. So happy to be here, and my topic of the three, because we split this into three, was to share some light, look at the concepts and looking into what is being done already now within the insurance industry with AI, and then also a bit brief on what actually people and users, and looking at from people who are using AI within the company, but having us also a bit of mindset as well that, okay, well, what it actually means that for the people who would be then the policyholders there as well. So looking at it from two aspects here in the beginning, and then handing on the speakers slot to Mark and Anna. So in brief, so AI within insurance. So I actually collected some background info into regards to what people are really and how they are focusing with technology in generally. So 72% of consumers used technology to improve their daily lives in 2023. So really, we use technology in numerous ways. besides we use it in work, we use it in free time. And if looking at it more when going into details, when you look at it, it's also looking into what kind of technology we would be actually looking to utilize in the future. And there actually the consumers have said that 42% would be comfortable to have to discuss with voice assistants who would provide information on suggested products, how to interact with the company and so forth, to really have a conversation there in the future. And then 17% would be comfortable using a bot and resolve complex customer service questions. This was in the end of 2023, and as we know that the situation is rapidly evolving. But just to keep these in the background as well, that okay, well, these are actually figures that what is there. And if you look at it from the company point of view, in the upcoming 5 years period, 53% of all companies are planning to invest in generative AI and to use it. And then they will use it in different areas of analyze customer data, marketing, chatbots, and so on and so forth. But really, I'm not saying that there's an imbalance there, but people are willing to use these services, but also still it is, let's say that we need to be gradually building up how the solutions are moving on in the insurance industry as well. So briefly from the buyer perspective, what I would like as a user of the policies or using insurance within my daily life or on a yearly level. Obviously, we know that if you have a car, for example, you probably crash it every 10 years, or there will be some kind of something will happen with it. It's not every day, but in a way that I would actually love to have, that there would be kind of marketing in a way that I really understand the products, because the one thing, if you look at it from the users and the potential buyers point of view, it's very difficult to understand what is behind an insurance product. No one reads the terms and conditions, but AI is actually would be the enabler that, okay, I can have a discussion. I want to understand more of the terms and conditions, but I don't want to read it. And then it's basically asking a summary from ChatGPT or really having a discussion with a chatbot there. And then if you look at it from the other point of view, it's the transparency side. How do I feel as a consumer that, okay, well, is insurance transparent? What happens in the process? I know that now a lot of the processes are going that I file a claim, it doesn't disappear, but it's still looking into that, okay, well, what happens there? Really, and then different policyholders have different questions as well. Now there might be notifications that it is there and this is what it happens, but it's more to really have a conversation with a company which is actually could be supported by AI. I see definitely that these aspects and the additional one, I think, which is even more relevant for when you look at that, okay, what actually value the insurance gives me as well, is that, okay, well, if I start to look at it, okay, well, how risky I am as a policyholder, so that I would have a kind of like own risk analyze. Okay, well, what should I have as an insurance product? I think this discussion we seldom actually do have in place, or you need to call to an insurance company, and I think this is something that you don't do on a regular basis. So that a bit brief from the buyer perspective. When looking into the insurer and the risk carrier side, it's really on looking into the overall process, like here on looking into what happens in underwriting, what can be done through in risk pools, what is kind of like when you nourish the products in the future, and when you handle claims. So they are really divided, and there are different areas where you can actually do this. And if you look at that AI, as for example, the speed where they actually are already now, they give instant quote. They could basically give you an instant quotation of a policy given with the details that you basically in the future you will just say that this is the situation, and they will give you recommendations of that. Okay, well, this product, this should be it, that would be there. But these are actually, it means that the insurance companies also can utilize it with dynamic pricing towards the policyholders, and also even dynamic underwriting, and to look at how the products look like. It means also that there is a lot of, when you look at it, the during stage in a way that, okay, well, how the risk pool is developing and nourishing the products. So each individual, it's an actuary in the company, or even a claims handler, I think, in the future, that, okay, well, what has happened for this specific policy setup, or the claims policies, and then it actually gives you guidance. So I know that there are systems in place already where the claims handlers are being supported by AI. It gives you recommendations. It reads a lot of text, gives you summaries of health. So basically from health-related information. And then these are kind of like I think these are the high-risk ones, and definitely Mark will touch upon this topic more. But it basically, when you look at, for example, goods, you look at car, okay, what is the claims type of a car? Then you actually more and more look at it with an AI glass, and you can do instant claims reimbursements as well. And then you actually can speed up the process. I think this is the case with AI. You can speed up the processes with different solutions. So if I look at it from the aspect streamline operations, definitely enhance the customer service side. Then if you look at the capacity of how you can underwrite products in the future, and then the claims management part, also the AI will enable companies to be better on top of that. Kind of each claim can be handled. Now I know that there's a lot of policies where the companies are having, let's say, a claims limit, so that, okay, that something is being paid if it's not being reviewed in any ways. And then but it actually enables that AI can go through each and every claim. And when you look at overall the complete process of an insurance product and life cycle, an AI can actually make basically a life cycle mapping with an individual product in comparison to a policyholder. I think in a completely different way than it actually is being now currently done. So it can be more precise, more to the point. And that's kind of like what I see that in long-term AI can then deliver, and that actually then benefits the company by also being able to create new products, but it's also new products for the policyholders, so that then they can ensure more precisely what they really want. That's actually from me. That's in a really, and then I will hand in the next one. I need to stop sharing for a while because it was Mark, your turn, wasn't it? Yes.
Yep, it's my turn. Good. Thanks, that's very helpful. I'm just going to put my timer on because Jussi's been very strict. I'm not allowed more than 10 minutes, otherwise he'll just cut me off dead. And are there some slides that we're going to show?
Yeah. I'm just.
Anyway, so I'm going to talk about the overview. Just hold on a minute. And the general issues of basically the AI Act. Just bear in mind that the AI Act does not replace any other legislation. It just adds on top. So I'm not going to talk there are a lot of issues around there. I'm not going to talk too much about it, about the other stuff. I'm talking mainly about the AI Act. Bottom right of that slide, you'll see reference to AI legal. Last week, actually, I started a LinkedIn newsletter, weekly newsletter on AI legal issues. And if you're interested in that, part of it will be looking at the AI Act bit by bit, chunk by chunk, interesting chunk by chunk, and other bits will be more general. If you go to the next slide, please, you see that's very good. So there'll be an overview, and at the end, I'll talk a bit about use cases, time permitting. Right, next slide. Now, the AI Act is not it's new, but it's not new. The CE, that's the mark. That's the kind of that's the mark that says conforms to European conformance, conforms to European standards, and that framework applies to loads of devices in the European Union at the moment: lifts, medical devices, cars, toys, electrical devices. And what the AI Act does, it takes the AI and it puts that within the framework. Okay, and if a particular device, whether it's a lift, a medical device, or AI, falls within the regulation, it has to it has to conform with this regulation, and it has to show this mark. If it shows the mark and it's not authorized to show the mark, hasn't got the appropriate sign off, it's a criminal act in most countries. Okay, so that's it. So Jussi asked me the other day, what happens if I'm in a country in Europe, I want to use, I don't know, a foreign bit of AI, right? Typically it's going to be American. Can I do that? The answer is, well, only if it's got the CE mark. If it doesn't have the CE mark and it's a high risk AI system, do not use it. It'll be unlawful to use it. So it'll be quite simple in a way. And it's a bit like lifts, right? If you want to sell a lift or a medical device in Europe, you've got to comply with the regulations and got to have a CE mark. If you're building a house and you're putting a lift in, you've got to make sure that although you might get a cheaper lift from somewhere else, unless it conforms to the European regulation, you can't use that lift in your house in Europe, right? That's how it's going to work. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, I'm going to talk primarily about the compliance obligations, not substantive obligations. There's a bit of a difference between things you do just to comply and the things you need to do, which are kind of operational law. I'm talking mainly about compliance obligations here. Sorry, next slide. And the AI Act has got a number of life forms, kind of players, operators in it. The two main ones are the provider and the deployer. And the provider is somebody who develops a AI model, AI system, and puts them on the market, or puts in service under its own name or trademark. So that we're talking about people like OpenAI, Microsoft, Google with Bard, OpenAI with ChatGPT. Those are providers. Deployers is everyone else, right? And it's someone, and if it's a business using an AI system under its authority in the business, internally or facing customers. If you've decided to use that AI system in your business, you're a deployer. Okay, and you'll see there's a carve out at the bottom. And the carve out is just, if you use the AI system in the course of personal, non-professional activity at home on your own, fine. You fall outside the regulation. But any business use, effectively, is going to get caught. And then you are a deployer. One caveat, or this is a couple of caveats, but this is the main one. If you decide to brand it under your own name, you become a provider, right? You take on the obligations being provider. Now, it's not as onerous. So let's say you take OpenAI and you create YELLOWMAY AI on top of it. You'll be able to leverage all the work and all the regulation, conformity, all that stuff that OpenAI has already done, but legally you're now taking on the obligations of a provider. So a lot of people will probably be a bit reluctant to do that in the initial phases, I expect. Next slide, please. Right. So let's say you're going to be a deployer. You're deploying a high-risk AI system. That's what HRAIS is, high-risk AI system, right? You're not the provider. They do all the heavy lifting, all the applying to the standard assessment bodies to get the sign-off and all that stuff. What are your obligations providing you stay as a deployer? And these are the primary ones. Okay, there's a few more, but these are the primary ones. You've got to maintain human oversight of it. You've got to have skilled people that understand how it works, and they've got to keep an eye on stuff. You can't wash your hands and say it's all over there, it's an AI, I'm not going to do anything about it. Human oversight is important. If you are inputting data, so if it's you inputting data, not your customers, so if you're control of the data that's going in, you've got to make sure it's decent quality data. You also have to monitor operations, keep an eye on what's going on, probably talking to the provider, other people in your area, see how the system is performing, see if there's any problems with it. You need to report risks. You can, and there's various people you report risks, including distributors, providers, and kind of supervisory authorities. You got to keep the last 6 months of system logs, right, which is not an onerous obligation. And you've got to let users know it's AI. You can't let, if you're using an AI chatbot, they have, unless it's obvious, they need to know that it's not human they're interacting with. And those are the primary obligations of a compliance obligations. I'll talk about one important substantive one later on of if you're a deployer of a high risk AI systems. Now, quick digression. There's kind of three main categorizations of AI systems. The ones are totally forbidden. I'm not going to talk about those because in insurance, you're regulated. You wouldn't want to. Most businesses wouldn't want to do them. If you're in a regulated business, you wouldn't be allowed to do them anyway. There's stuff which is so inoffensive it doesn't fall into the system. That falls outside the act more or less totally. And then there's what's called high risk. These are the ones I've talked about. This is what these obligations apply to. And the next slide, we'll see what they are. So what's a high risk AI system? So it's more than this, but I've cut out all the stuff that doesn't apply. I've cut all the stuff, critical infrastructure, stuff that different rules, the police, the military, security services, right? Forget all that. This is what applies to your typical business and typical business insurance sector. Biometric categorization using sensitive and protected attributes or characteristics, right? This is classifying people by, and it's not clear what sensitive and protected is actually, it's not defined. It probably means what's in the GDPR as sensitive. There's a lot of overlap between the AI Act and the GDPR. And remember the GDPR, if you're processing personal data, it will apply. So both will apply. So effectively the standard, to the extent there's an increase in one, the standard's gone up. Emotion recognition, if you're using it to recognize people, how people feel about stuff, that's high risk. Educational vocational training, that's quite a broad thing. That's do you qualify for this kind of training? Is this training suitable for you or not? Marking exam papers, that kind of stuff. Recruitment is high risk, right? Now, all these things, bear in mind, it doesn't mean you can't do it. It means you're subject to compliance obligations and reporting obligations and monitoring obligations, human oversight obligations. But recruitment, obviously, for the concerns about bias. Decisions about staff, automated decisions about staff, monitoring and evaluation of staff performance and behavior. Credit scoring, okay, is considered high risk, and also risk assessment pricing in relation to life and health insurance, two specific insurance ones which are called out. Now, a lot of those, if you look at this list, most of it, the GDPR would apply anyway. So it's kind of it's not that huge a leap in terms of how you're going to operate this, because most of this stuff GDPR would be applying, and your duties of fairness, transparency, and all that kind of stuff in there. Next slide, please. Now, the one thing I didn't cover properly in the slide, I realized afterwards, is explainability. Automated decision making using an AI system means you have to explain how you got to the decision, why you got to the decision, that kind of stuff. It's a broader test than GDPR. But what I'm going to do is after this, I'm going to do a table, GDPR left-hand side, AI right-hand side, and I'll get you to circulate that to everybody. My 10 minutes just about up, but quick look at the use cases here. You'll see that I'm repeating myself. GDPR will apply to a lot of this stuff. One thing to look out for, chatbots. AI is not predictable, it's random, it's probabilistic. So if you put one input one day and then same input the next day, you may not get the same answer. There's a chatbot example in Canada. Somebody used a chatbot for an airline. It said, yes, you can cancel, blah, 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 if you want to. They put the ticket. Turns out the chatbot was wrong. The airline refused to pay. It went to some kind of legal forum, and the legal forum said, no, airline, your chatbot was wrong. You have to pay up. So you expect chatbots just expect that AI is not predictable like normal previous software was, and you will be liable for what your chatbot, or most likely be liable for what your chatbot says. And that's, sorry, 11 minutes and a bit. Yeah, you're on mute. Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah. Now I'm back. Now I have a lovely topic there of that Anna was thrown out and she's having an issue having in. So, but I there's no lobby on it. So I think that's definitely the interesting case. How do we get her on the sound? Let's see. I actually need to probably call her and then she can talk through it, but this is really interesting. I don't know why she has been thrown out. No idea. Now she's there. I can see her at least. Hello, Anna.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, excellent.
It was perfect timing. Perfect timing.
Otherwise than missing what Mark just said, but yeah, really sorry for that. Teams threw me out and did not let me in. I'm connecting now via the browser. So let us see what will happen.
Well, I can operate. Yeah, I can operate you the slides. I think that makes it easier.
That makes it easier. Let's do that. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, it was complaining that I don't have an internet connection, but it seems that I do, and the problem was with Teams after all. Okay, are you able to find my slides, Jussi?
Yeah. I'm just looking into it. Share the window here, and then I'll put it in presentation mode.
Excellent. Now we are talking.
Okay. There we are.
Excellent. So let's go to the first slide. Jussi has talked now about the use cases, potential use cases for AI in insurance industry, and I know that Mark just covered the focal topics regarding the legislation and the regulation side of it. But if you switch the slide, Jussi.
Yes. Let's see, how does this work? There we go.
Yes. The focal question now is, why does AI need regulation and why does it need ethical governance? Why are we talking so much about the regulation regarding AI and the need to talk about ethics of AI? Well, first up here, Jussi, thank you.
There we go.
Here we go. This is the things that easily come to mind when we talk about AI regulation. There are many quite well-known scandals with high ethical consequences, with highly relevant ethical consequences that are resulted from the failures of AI system. An example, a familiar example, is this Amazon's sexist recruiting tool. It's unsurprisingly, perhaps, recruited male candidates, white male candidates, because in the data that was used to teach the algorithm, of course, the recruiting of white male candidates was overrepresented. Another example, a little bit less known example from Netherlands, is that AI failed in a childcare benefit allocation system. Many families who actually did have right to have this childcare benefit were refused of it and were asked to pay back the benefits that they had been paid for or that they had been receiving for months and months. And this resulted in really, really severe economic financial consequences for the families who actually were already marginalized. So the humane consequences and the suffering that resulted from the failure of AI system was huge there. But this is only one side of the coin. Other side is there on the right-hand side of the slide. We also have a great promise for societal betterment in AI. We already know that AI can do really well in certain kinds of tasks, for instance, in diagnostical tasks in medicine. Or then we have an example of a AI system that is able to detect where illegal rainforest harvesting is taking place. And after detecting that, then of course it's possible to act and do something about it. So we have, at the same time, we have great risk for human suffering, and then also great promise for societal betterment. And now the challenge is that if we do not regulate AI, it may come to this, that we actually lose trust in AI, and then we don't reach the great results that could be reached with AI. And another challenge is that actually in same AI system, in a same AI application, often there is both this potential for risk, for ethical risk, and then potential for great societal betterment. So great risks, great promises. But if you turn now to next slide, Jussi, one can ask critically, why are we talking actually about the ethical sensitivity of AI? Why are we not talking about the ethics of PowerPoint or ethics of toasters? We are using all kinds of technological things which we do not understand quite, which can be used to do something good or to do something bad. So why is AI anyhow different from other technologies, from other devices, from other tools? Well, in a sense, many ethical questions of AI actually are quite similar to the more wider ethical questions of digitalization. But however, there is certain ethical specificity in AI. Let's look at the next slide. I will not go through all of these in detail, but just to give you an overview. One ethical sort of particularity that AI has in it is that it actually mirrors humanity. It mirrors our mistakes and our flaws. The data, which is used to teach the algorithms, is often biased. We have inserted in the data our own biases, our own discriminatory ways of thinking. And when we use that data to train AI, we instantly scale up the mistakes that we do. Another thing is that indeed, as Jussi mentioned in the beginning, sometimes AI can be used to increase transparency, but then also sometimes it is so that the deep learning AI system actually are black boxes. It is quite impossible for us human beings to deeply understand what is happening in a multi-layered, complex AI system. So we don't know quite what is going on there. And accordingly, when AI systems fail, it's difficult to say who is imputable, who is responsible for the failure. And what is specific for AI is that it actually involves risk to the enforcement of our very fundamental rights. AI can be so adaptive, so fast learning system that it's really efficient in threatening our most fundamental rights. One of our fundamental rights, for instance, is our right to safety. And AI has been used in, for instance, in electric cars, in autopilot systems, which have then failed and led to severe consequences and severe actions. So there is certain ethical specificity in artificial intelligence, which sort of obliges us to look a little bit more closely. What is the ethical questions? What are the ethical questions of AI? And if we now turn to the next slide, the question we then want to ask: how do we guide the development of ethical AI? How to promote the ethical use of AI? And appear the next word there, or next sentence, Jussi. The dominant answer is through listing ethical principles, making guidelines, making sets of guidelines. However, it seems that this might not turn out to be the most efficient way to guide ethical AI development. If we now turn to the next slide, I have pinpointed some ethical questions that may be relevant for AI, using AI in insurance industry. There are firstly dilemmas. AI is a tool for efficient operations, as Jussi mentioned, and cost efficiency is also a moral principle. It's good to be efficient. It's good to get the processes streamlined. It's actually a moral principle as well. However, then we have at the same time in using AI applications in insurance, we have the potential for undermining rights. For instance, our right to know the reason for our decision that concerns me. If I get an insurance decision, I basically have a right to know why that insurance decision is as it is. And as mentioned, AI being a black box in some sense, this might be threatened. The transparency, the understandability might be threatened. So promoting right or safeguarding rights or promoting cost efficiency, there's a dilemma there. Another example, we can use advanced AI-powered analytics to understand customer groups better. Yes, but will this lead to discriminating some groups? Or will this actually lead to better customer service, to better products, better insurance products? So there are dilemmas in which there is no right answer, and then there are these leadership challenges that we have in starting to implement AI in insurance industry. So this is the reason why just listing static principles does not work. And if we turn to the next slide, of course, the question is, what then works? We had to move from listing principles to facilitating action on systemic level. So if you press up here, you see there, if you start in your organization, if you start doing this ethical principle, use it as a possibility to gain shared understanding about what actually are we using AI for. Are we understanding the ethical issues similarly? What is our understanding? Use that as a possibility, not just to do a PDF file to your website, but to actually gain shared understanding. And if you press next button, you see there, what is actually the right course of action, the right target is to promote the ethical action capability, the ability of those people who work in insurance industry to assess AI from ethical perspective, to evaluate whether and how AI can be implemented. And for that, you might need to step up your game a little bit. You might need to learn a little bit ethical concepts, ethical viewpoints as well. And then let's go further, and then a little bit further as well. Here is my 5 steps to the ethical use of AI. I promised in the advertisement text to tell how you could get started with using AI in an ethical manner. First, find the right questions. Don't find the answers first, but find the right questions. Find out what AI-related issues you have already identified and what issues you should identify. Then, secondly, familiarize yourself with the laws and guidelines that already govern the use of AI. That is what Mark did for us today. Thirdly, engage in a collaborative learning process. Thus, when you build this guideline, for instance, it actually, the focal thing is to learn together, learn together about AI and ethics. Then fourthly, increase the AI literacy of the individuals and the teams, and at the same time learn the ethical skills. And then finally, start building an AI governance model and clarify responsibilities. Who's responsible of what? Who's responsible for data? Who is responsible for the decisions when you reach an ethical issue, an ethical dilemma? Who is responsible for solving it? So these 5 steps will take you far with the ethical use of AI. And finally, my last slide. Here, some ideas and tools. If you want, I can post that link later to the chat, but there actually are tools to help you with getting started with ethical use of AI. These tools are only available now in Finnish, but please contact me if you would want to have them in English. I might be willing to translate them in English as well. We have invented this tool for assess the ethical agency, the level of ethical know-how in AI-related topics. And then there is a suggestion for a really brief or concise evaluation framework or evaluation tool to assess the ethical dilemmas related to AI. So there are things that you can start using already today or tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Okay, let's see. Do we have questions from the audience? I have questions anyway, so it's then I think then. But please do post if you have anything that comes to mind to write it to the chat, and then definitely aim to find an answer to it as well. Actually, Mark, I will start from you. I will give a breather for Anna. How do you see this? Because what comes to my mind if looking at it, the kind of the regulatory framework in a way that, because people, like Anna said, that people make mistakes, and then AI makes mistakes, and then how does it steer in towards the direction that who kind of is the faulty or the guilty party in a way in that form? What is kind of the what comes to your mind if you look at this kind of, because obviously if you put it into a, let's say, a washing machine and it does not function, it's not lethal. But if you put AI into, let's say, into something that keeps your heart going, for example, and then that it kind of adjusts that appliance, then in the future, how do you see this? What is in your mind?
It's a good question. I don't think we will treat AI differently to any other kind of product, right? So if you bought an ordinary washing machine and in the night it caught fire and burnt your house down, and it caught fire because it was a fault in the product, you would sue the manufacturer, who would have to pay you. And if it happens to be one with the AI in it, and maybe the fault was the AI system in the machine, or maybe not, who cares? The thing happened, it was responsible. And as a manufacturer, you can't say, well, I'm sorry, I'm not responsible for AI. I'm responsible for all the other bits in my washing machine, but I'm not responsible for the AI component. That doesn't really make any sense. And I think it's the same it'll be the same for, medical devices, anything which uses AI. No one's forced to use AI, right? And that's why the chatbot is a good example, because the chatbot said, something like, this is how it works, but you should also check our website, gave some links, right? And the person didn't check the website, didn't check the links. They had checked the links, that have seen that what the website said was different to what the chatbot said. But this is a consumer, right? So consumers get protection. So the outcome was, no, you, Mr. Airline, decided to use this chatbot who gave the wrong information. You're in the wrong. Pay up. And I think that would be particularly for consumer-facing stuff. That's always going to be the answer. It might be slightly different B2B when it's easy to allocate responsibility.
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely, I think the B2B variable there of basically then, well, I would say that it will be a bit tricky that, okay, I will say that we as a company do not use AI in our work, but then you basically have a standard laptop which is already driven by AI functionality in the future. So will you go and shop to an appliance that, okay, I don't want AI within the appliance to be handed to
Well,
our
I'm sure.
organization?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, it's a software at the moment. It might be whatever, but the argument is always going to be, and a more B2B discussion will be, let's say I'm a supplier, I'm using AI, and you're the buyer, so don't use AI, and I'll go, okay, no problem, I'll increase my price by 10% if I'm not using AI, or 20%, because AI allows me to be more efficient. If you want to use the less efficient, and I'll say, I won't. Basically, I won't take any risk of AI because you, the buyer, is smart enough to know, or you may say, I'll take this amount of risk up to here. Risk above that, you take. But yeah, I mean, who knows how it's all going to develop? Oh,
but this is, I think, it's the like, I think the CE branding. I think that is very clear, and like in my mind as well, that how I know that in a way, and this comes down to the discussion we have had previously as well, but how would you say that your colleague is I don't know, Maria, which is the name of the AI bot that you're working together, and then now you obviously have a person there, but then you might have the AI instead of your nowadays a human colleague there, that it's basically completely virtual, and you can talk using voice and whatever there with the bot on, like you would bounce back ideas now with people. So what would you say, Anna, if people start to really use the AI as a colleague as well? Where does come the biases and these in those circumstances?
Actually, yeah, it has been shown in human-computer interaction studies that we have this tendency to think even the more sort of simple digital services as being human-like, or treating them as they would be humans. So there is this potential that as these large language models facilitate making more human-like interaction encounters, then we actually forget that we're not chatting with a human being, but we're actually chatting or communicating with an AI. And that kind of creates interesting also ethical consequences. It might be also related to insurance companies, because they are important societal institutions. They are really relevant to the fulfillment of some of our most basic rights. But in particular, this is relevant, for instance, for public sector institutions. It has been shown that actually people, when they sort of chat via an AI application with somebody who represents a public institution, they feel that actually the reaction the AI system is giving are as if they would be the reactions of society to me and my value in this society. So if there is a lot at stake there. So if the AI system fails, if you feel that treats me disrespectfully, or doesn't know my situation, doesn't understand my situation, then I might actually feel that an institution that does not respect me, that's, be it either public institution or be it an organization from insurance industry, that organization does not respect me. So it becomes much more personal than if an email fails or something like that. So along with the personalization, along with the sense of having this actual intersubjective dialogue, you get this risk that when the system fails, it causes much more suffering and much more potential damage to the brand and to the image of the company. Yeah. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. You have the potential, but then great risks again.
Yeah, because you missed on that part, because Mark was saying that when now in this stage, and you can reflect, Mark, to it, but basically for me it was really big that, okay, well, if we brand an AI system to ourselves, or that kind of it's part of the delivery, that it's not being mentioned that this is a separate entity who is delivering the AI part, you actually become a provider, and that's a huge topic, even though you don't kind of like, you would just use a white label solution in a way. So I think that's definitely, I think that will probably be something that companies will be considering it very thoroughly, that do they want to do this, or is it really that there's a claims process or a policy process, and then it's being said that, okay, well, here on top of the layer goes this AI chatbot, which is provided by this company. What is your gut feeling, Mark, on that one?
I don't know. I think, well, it'll be a mixture of things, won't it? Some people will leap ahead, be early adopters, take the risk, maybe get some insurance to cover it, and others will hang back and see. And I just don't know quite how it's going to go. And also, it's the extent, to what extent do you do things like, don't like this conversation, want to talk to a human, you give people exits, right? I had that yesterday if something wasn't working. I'm sure it wasn't an AI chatbot, but it wasn't giving me useful information. I typed in, please can I talk to a human? And the human couldn't help me either, but they at least they tried. I felt better to Anna's point.
Yeah, and actually, I see that there is Sami Vihavainen, who have been working with together at Gofore, or we have been developing these ideas of what is ethical digitalization and ethical digital development. And together with Sami, we have actually talked a lot about the meaning and the significance of ethical design, ethical digital design. And now, especially in particular when we're starting to implement AI, this kind of user interfaces to replace our customer service processes with new AI systems, I think there is a really good rationale to start using these ethical design methodologies, user-centric design methodologies. I think many insurance companies are using them already, but they don't always understand that actually they are very essential in also figuring out how people react, how people will adopt AI facilitated systems. And that would be something that could be like really like tangible thing to do, start implementing those methodologies when you use AI in your customer service, for instance. How do different groups of people experience it, even different marginalized groups, for instance?
I think there's an interesting point there. If you think the GDPR had privacy by design, the could have had, I'm not sure what the noun is, ethics by design, right?
Yeah.
Could have been built in, maybe should have been built in.
Yeah.
So, good point.
Yeah, because what I definitely see like the challenge there, that okay, you need to have the CE branding in a way into a system there, that kind of like that, okay, well, how do you make sure? Well, you really need to make sure that in the procurement process, when you're doing procurement for an insurance provider, or when you're offering the services within the AI space as well. So definitely and what I see there is that it's kind of where do you start the process? I think in the insurance space is really that, well, AI can do a lot of mapping and doing a lot of analysis there in the background as well. So it's kind of like that you don't have to automatically push it towards the customers in that sense.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it enables a lot of things there, definitely, because, well, the insurance industry is a data-driven industry. So really there's a lot of data which is not being used in up to the state that it could be done, I think nowadays. Definitely. We are almost starting to be in the closure, and we did not get any questions, but I think it's more either we were so thorough or then the questions comes afterwards. I think usually it comes afterwards. Yes. What would be let's start from you, Anna, that what would be your closing remarks on regards to the topic?
I say that also insurance companies, similarly to all other companies, should start allocating a little bit of resources to strengthening their ethical expertise, their ethical know-how. So there are tools, there are frameworks, there are concepts that can be implemented and that will help in the ethical use of AI. But my understanding is that companies, also insurance companies, are quite unaware of those opportunities. So that is something, that is a level or like a topic know-how that could be implemented, that could be strengthened.
Mark?
Well, I'd say something along those lines as well. I mean, I would actually, if I was CEO of a company, I'd probably say who's interested in this stuff, and let them form their own group and start talking about it and planning about it. And some will be focused on ethics, some will focus on technology, some will focus on legal, some use cases. But at least the discussion will create a higher rate of learning than you get otherwise.
Yeah.
How about you, Jussi?
Well, I think from the insurance perspective, it is definitely to start testing it but I think it's to align it first that, okay, well, how you do it with an actuary would do it now, like with the existing tools, but then looking into that, okay, well, when you add data analytics by using AI, that kind of pushes the data into that black box, like you said. But then as an outcome might be, then comes again saying that, okay, this makes sense from the person's point of view. Then it's kind of supportive in the form like I think it should be there. And then the more we are able to still go have that back and forth dialogue between the AI and human intervention, then the better we will definitely create these processes within the insurance framework, because it has a big impact. So if I would not push it into say that, okay, well, your health insurance is cancelled because you're too ill, or that you're so healthy that we will basically say that you only need to buy this product, and then you fall ill, and then the AI was saying that I did not need the product. So it's really kind of a balancing there on starting with kind of utilizing the data already what we have, really to allow it in a way, and then have and test it, because I think this is the only way, and a lot of the companies and a lot of industries will do this. Good. I don't have anything more. I definitely want to thank all the people who were here listening to us as well, and then obviously the recording goes as well for the ones who signed up. So I think in total we almost reached 30 countries and almost 50 people here. So I think it was a lot of. It goes across, so definitely I want to still thank you, Mark and Anna, for contributing for the topic. It was very, very nice to have the conversation with you guys.
Pleasure.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
bye.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye, everyone. Bye. Have a lovely day.